Welcome to Module 4 with our topic on discourse and genre. In this module, we will discuss definitions as well as examples of genre analyses. We will outline features of Sydney School, English for specific purposes, and rhetorical genre studies analyses. One of the key ways in which people communicate with each other is through the participation in particular communicative events or genres. Examples of genres are business letters, news reports, business reports, parliamentary speeches, court transcripts, and weather reports, so forth and so on. Each of these occurs in a particular setting, is organized in a particular way, and has a distinctive communicative function or purpose. What indeed then are genres? Well, genres are ways in which people get things done through their use of spoken and written discourse. Genres are activities that people engaged in through the use of language. Academic lectures and casual conversations are examples of spoken genres. Newspaper reports and academic essays are examples of written genres. Instances of a genre often share a number of features. They may be spoken or written in typical and sometimes conventional ways. They also often have a common function and purpose, or set of functions and purposes. Genres may typically be performed by a particular person aimed at a particular audience, such as an academic lecture being delivered by a lecturer to a group of undergraduate students. There may be certain contexts in which a genre typically occurs, such as a lecture taking place in a university and certain topics that are typically associated with the use of a genre, such as particular academic course content. Genres change through time. This may, for example, be in response to changes and technologies, or it may be as a result of changes in values underlying the use of the particular genre. The office memo is an example of a genre that has changed in response to technological changes. An office meeting may change when a new person takes over chairing the meeting, who has a different idea from his or her predecessor as to how the meeting should be run, what is important to discuss, and how this should be discussed. We use language in particular ways, according to the content and purpose of the genre, the relationship between us and the person we are speaking to, or the audience we are writing for or speaking to. The way we use language in a particular genre also depends on whether the text is written or spoken, and the social and cultural context in which the genre occurs. When we do this, we draw on our previous experience with the genre to know how we should normally do this. This does not mean, however, that every instance of a genre is the same, nor that genres do not change. Examples of genre change can be seen in the way the internet has influenced existing forms of communication, such as internal office memos, and has introduced new forms of communication, such as internet chat rooms, blogs, and online discussion forums. The introduction of new technologies can also bring with it new genres, such as the way mobile phones have introduced the new genre of text messaging. In the study of genre, three major approaches come to mind. We have the Sydney School of Genre Analysis, the genre analysis and English for specific purposes, and rhetorical genre studies. First, we have the Sydney School of Genre Analysis. The notion of genre is important in the teaching of writing and reading. Here, the term schematic structure is often used to describe the discourse structure of texts. The notion of genre corresponds to the notion of context of culture and is responsible for the schematic structure of a text. The register of the text, on the other hand, corresponds to the context of situation and is responsible for the language features of a text. Genres, thus, are culture-specific and have particular purposes, stages, and linguistic features associated with them, the meanings of which need to be interpreted in relation to the cultural and social contexts in which they occur. Now we go to the second, genre analysis and English for specific purposes. The approach to analysis is based on Swaley's analysis of the discourse structures of research article introductions. It argues that genres may have multiple purposes and that these may be different for each of the participants involved. The communicative purpose of a genre, further, may evolve over time. It may change, it may expand, or it may shrink. Communicative purpose, further, can vary cultures or across cultures, even when texts belong to the same genre category. And lastly, the rhetorical genre studies. Researchers in rhetorical genre studies describe genres as part of the social processes by which knowledge about reality and the world are made. Genres, in this view, both respond to and contribute to the constitution of social contexts, as well as the socialization of individuals. Genres, then, are more than just socially embedded, they are socially constructed. We have to remember, though, that in genres, there are choices and constraints, regularity and chaos. Genres are dynamic and open to change, but it is not a case of free for all or anything goes. As Devitt explains, conformity among genre users is a fact of genre, for genres provide an expected way of acting. As she argues, there are often consequences for violating genre expectations, and these consequences cannot always be predicted. Both constraint and choice are necessary and positive components of genres. Choice and constraint both need to be valued. Another key issue underlying this discussion is how we define a text as an instance of a particular genre, or in other words, how we assign it to a genre category. Cook argues that we draw on many aspects of language and context to do this. We may consider the author or the speaker of the text and the intended audience of the text. We may also consider the purpose of the text, the situation in which the text occurs, the physical form, and, in the case of written texts, the title of the text. We may be influenced by a pre-sequence to the text, such as once upon a time, as well as the discourse structure of the text. Other factors that might help us decide what genre the text is may include the content of the text, the level of formality of the text, the style or register of the text, and whether it is a spoken or a written text. Some of these may be more important than others in helping us to decide what the generic category is that a text belongs to. Some may also be difficult to determine, such as the purpose or purposes of the text. Communicative purpose is an important, although complex, criterion for deciding whether a text is an instance of a particular genre. That is, a text may be presented in an unusual way for that particular genre, but still has the same communicative aim as other instances of the particular genre. In some cases, the text might be considered a best example of the particular genre, and in others, it might be so atypical as to be considered a problematic example of the genre. Shopping lists, responses to letters of recommendation, and company brochures, for example, may have more than a single communicative purpose. A book review may describe and evaluate a book, but may also promote the book. Book introductions, which introduce the work, may also promote it. The issue of genre identification is, thus, a complex one and requires a flexible rather than a static view of what it is that leads users of a language to recognize a communicative event as an instance of a particular genre. A key factor in this process lies in the perspective on genre based on the notion of prototype rather than on sets of defining features. Assigning a text to a genre category, then, does not necessarily involve an exact match in terms of characteristics or properties. Rather, it involves the notion of sufficient similarity. A recent development in genre theory has been the notions of genre networks, genre chains, genre sets, and repertoires of genres. A key issue here is the way the use of one genre may assume or depend on the use of a number of other interrelated genres. An example of this is the academic essay, which may draw from and cite a number of other genres such as academic lectures, specialist academic texts, and journal articles. Academic essays also interrelate closely with assignment guidelines, statements of assessment criteria, tutorial discussions, and teacher-student consultations. In this example, we see a genre network based on the genres research students in universities need to be familiar with. The sequence in which they take part in these genres may vary and may not be necessarily the same for every student, but they are part of a typical repertoire of genre needs for many research students. In academic writing, the notion of discourse genre is particularly important. These are specific structures when writing research articles, master's theses, and doctoral dissertations, job application and sales promotion letters, legislative documents, the graduate seminar, academic lectures, poster session, discussions, and the texts that students read in university courses. But how do we analyze genre? The first step is to collect samples of the genre you are interested in. Pacha suggests taking a few randomly chosen texts for exploratory investigation, a single typical text for detailed analysis, or a larger sample of texts if we wish to investigate a few specified features. Clearly, the more samples you can collect of the genre, however, the better you'll be able to identify typical features of the genre. The next step is to consider what is already known about the particular genre. This includes knowledge of the setting in which it occurs, as well as any conventions that are typically associated with a genre. For information on this, we can go to existing literature such as guidebooks and manuals, as well as seek practitioner advice on the particular genre. It is also helpful to look at what analyses have been carried out of the particular genre or other related genres by looking at research articles or books on the topic. Next, we need to refine the analysis by defining the speaker or writer of the text, the audience of the text, and their relationship with each other, that is, who uses the genre, who writes in the genre, who reads the genre, and what roles the readers perform as they read the text. We also need to consider the goal or purpose of the text, that is, why do writers write the genre? Why do readers read it, and what purpose does the genre have for the people who use it? A further important consideration is typical discourse patterns for the genre, that is, how are the texts typically organized? How are they typically presented in terms of layout and format, and what are some language features that typically reoccur in the particular genre? Equally, what do people need to know to take part in the genre, and what view of the world does the text assume of its readers? That is, what values, beliefs, and assumptions are assumed or revealed by the particular genre. We should also think about the network of texts that surround the genre, and to what extent knowledge of these is important in order to be able to write or make sense of a particular genre. An important stage in the genre analysis, then, is an examination of the social and cultural context in which the genre is used. In the case of a written text, factors that might be considered include the following: the setting of the text, the focus and perspective of the text, the purpose or purposes of the text, the intended audience for the text, the role and purpose in reading the text, and the relationship between writers and readers of the text. Expectations, conventions, and requirements of the text, the background knowledge, values, and understandings it is assumed the writer shares with the readers, including what is important to the reader and what is not, the relationship the text has with other texts. These aspects of a genre, of course, are not as distinct as they appear in this kind of listing. They are deeply intertwined, and each in its way has an impact on what a writer writes and the way they write it. Here we have, for example, an analysis of the social and cultural context of theses and dissertations. It shows that the range of factors that impact on how the text is written, how it will be read, and importantly, how it will be assessed. You can see that we have to look at the setting of the text, focus and perspective of the text, purpose of the text, audience, role and purpose in reading the text, relationship between writers and readers of the text, expectations, conventions, and requirements for the text, background knowledge, values and understandings, and the relationship the text has with other texts. It is crucial then not just to analyze the discourse structure of texts, but also to gain an understanding of the socially situated nature of texts and the role they're playing in their particular setting. Moreover, there are a number of ways in which the discourse structure of genres can be analyzed. One of these is by identifying its generic structure based on its genre category membership, such as letter to the editor, doctoral dissertation, etc. Another is to examine its rhetorical structure by looking at rhetorical types such as argument, description, and problem solution that occur within the text. The text you see here is the abstract section of an experimental research report analyzed in terms of both its generic structure and as an instance of a problem solution rhetorical type text. So, why do we need to analyze genre in discourse? Well, writers argue that genre-based teaching can help students gain access to texts and discourses, which will hopefully help them participate more successfully in second language spoken and written interactions. Other writers argue that by teaching specific genre can both maintain the set standard or limit access to information with those who do not practice this specific genre. For example, by maintaining genres of power like research articles or dissertations, only those who are exposed to the genre have access to the information provided. Other issues include the extent to which the teaching and learning of genres might limit student expression if this is done through the use of model texts and a focus on audience expectations. We have just discussed definitions of, as well as examples of genre analyses. We have learned that genre identification is a complex one and requires a flexible rather than a static view of what it is that leads users of a language to recognize a text as an instance of a particular genre. There are suggestions on the purpose of genre in teaching writing in particular, but also caution against using descriptions of genre in the classroom simply as rules that need to be followed. Well, that's it for now. See you in Module 5. Bye.